70s. The glorious era of air travel. There was a time when air travel wasn't just a means of getting from point A to point B. It was an event, a privilege, and for many, a dream come true. The 1970s are often remembered as a transformative decade for air travel. Sandwiched between the glamour of the 1960s jet age and the mass-market aviation boom of the 1980s, the 70s marked a fascinating transition period. With major technological advancements, changing airline regulations, and evolving passenger expectations, the skies of the 1970s were both stylish and turbulent. The period from the 1950s through the 1970s is often referred to as the glorious era of air travel, a time when flying was marked by elegance, adventure, and prestige. Long before crowded terminals, tight legroom, and budget airlines, stepping onto an airplane meant stepping into a world of luxury in the skies. Flying in the 1970s still carried a certain prestige. Air travel was not yet as accessible or routine as it is today, and it remained a relatively expensive luxury for many. Passengers of this era dressed for the occasion. Suits, ties, dresses, and polished shoes were standard attire for a flight. Air travel was still relatively expensive and exclusive, and those who could afford it often saw it as a status symbol. The cabin crew, particularly flight attendants, then widely referred to as stewardesses, were dressed in fashionable and sometimes flamboyant uniforms that reflected the era's bold aesthetics. Airlines competed not just on routes and prices, but on service and style. Airlines embraced this sophistication, offering refined service with silverware meals, champagne, and attentive flight attendants who were meticulously trained to provide a first-class experience, even in economy. The in-flight experience was marketed as part of the adventure, not just a means to an end. The aircraft themselves reflected this grandeur. Planes like the Lockheed Constellation, Douglas DC-8, and later, the majestic Boeing 747, were technological marvels and style icons. Wide seats, generous legroom, and onboard lounges for socializing made flying comfortable and memorable. The 747, in particular, symbolized a new era of global connectivity, bringing far-flung destinations within reach of a broader, but still relatively privileged, audience. With its double-decker upper lounge and spacious cabins, the 747 offered an unmatched sense of scale and luxury. Other major aircraft in the skies during the decade included the McDonnell Douglas DC-10, Lockheed L-1011 TriStar, and the Boeing 727, which handled many domestic routes. From the moment a traveler entered the airport, they were met with personalized attention. Baggage handlers, ticket agents, and cabin crews all contributed to an atmosphere of respect and hospitality. In-flight meals were gourmet by today's standards, multi-course, freshly prepared, and elegantly served. Flight attendants, often called stewardesses at the time, were central to the glamorous image of flying. Recruited not only for their professionalism but also for their appearance and poise, they wore designer uniforms and were part of the airline's brand. While this image was heavily stylized and gendered, it undeniably shaped the cultural perception of flying during that time. The cockpit, meanwhile, was still analog, requiring a three-person crew: pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineer. GPS navigation was non-existent. Instead, pilots relied on ground-based radio navigation and manual calculations. Flying during the Golden Age was about the journey as much as the destination. With fewer flights and more stopovers, travel took longer but felt more immersive. Passengers disembarked in exotic cities, sometimes for hours, before continuing to their final destination. It was a slower, more human-paced form of travel that carried with it the allure of discovery. Security was minimal compared to today's standards. Friends and family could walk with passengers all the way to the gate, and boarding was quick and often accompanied by a smile. The cockpit door was sometimes left open, and children were occasionally invited inside for a look at the controls, a scene unimaginable in the post-9/11 world. One of the most significant events in 1970s air travel was the passage of the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978 in the United States. Prior to this, the government strictly regulated fares, routes, and schedules through the Civil Aeronautics Board, CAB. Deregulation opened the door for more competition, allowing airlines to set their own fares and choose their routes. This led to the rise of low-cost carriers, more affordable tickets, and a shift toward a more price-conscious passenger base. It also marked the beginning of the end for many legacy airlines that had thrived in the regulated environment. This democratization brought about incredible benefits, allowing millions to travel for work, leisure, and family. However, it also meant cost-cutting, crowded cabins, and a focus on efficiency over experience. The 1970s were also a time of social change, which impacted airline culture. The role and image of flight attendants began to shift. Once glamorized and even objectified in marketing campaigns, flight attendants began to assert their professional roles and push for better working conditions and gender equality. Security also became a growing concern. The early 70s saw a spike in airline hijackings, leading to the first significant wave of airport security measures, including metal detectors and passenger screening. Air travel in the 1970s was a complex blend of glamour, innovation, and transformation. It was a decade when the romance of flying was still alive, yet major economic and technological forces were reshaping the industry. For those who flew during the era, it was an experience marked by legroom, real meals, and a sense of occasion. Looking back, it's no wonder the 70s are often remembered as the golden age of air travel, just before flying became something we take for granted. Despite its end, the glorious era of air travel left a lasting imprint. It shaped the romance and excitement many still associate with flying. The vintage posters, airline advertisements, and photographs from that time continue to captivate the imagination. Today's travelers, squeezed between budget seats and digital check-ins, may long for that bygone charm, a time when flying felt like a celebration. In retrospect, the glorious era of air travel was more than just a chapter in transportation history. It was a cultural moment. It symbolized optimism, modernity, and a belief in a more connected world. And though the skies have changed, the legend of that golden age continues to soar. This presentation brought to you by Infinite Knowledge from Maroli Edutech. Thanks for being with us. Please share and subscribe to our channel for more upcoming informative and awesome videos.